So if we would return to biblical instruction as a nation and as a world, all the wars would stop. All the crime would stop. Well, I say all, not literally all, but virtually all. And we already have prescribed instructions laid out to deal with criminals. You know, someone who steals something is supposed to make it right. And I think he's supposed to make it right plus 20% or something other like that. So if I steal $100 from somebody, that means that I have to give back 120. And I might be wrong on my percentage. I don't remember exactly. But I do think it says that you're supposed to give it back plus the fifth part thereof. Which a fifth part is what? 20%. And in returning to where I started this video talking about the VA, even the VA system, which is a branch of the federal government, you know, one of the departments of the federal government, or whatever you want to call it, in returning to biblical principles, the attitudes of the people would be better. The people running the system, or managing the system, actually is what they're supposed to be doing. They're not supposed to be running it, they're supposed to be managing it. And yes, those are different terms. If they walked according to biblical principles, their attitudes would be better. They would hire people that had better attitudes. They would pay their employees a fair wage, as is indicated or instructed in Scripture. They would treat the patients better. You know, and instead of having a psychology department, they would have a biblical counseling department, if it was even needed. You know, the people that are currently running the government wouldn't be running the government anymore. They would be managing the country according to biblical principles. And I don't understand how it is that the largest group of people in the world that claim to be of God deny His word, reject His authority, and change what He has said. And I'm talking about the corporate Catholic Protestant church organization. And I say Catholic Protestant on purpose because, yes, the Protestants broke away from the Catholic Church. Absolutely. But they sure did take a whole lot of the Catholic doctrine with them. Because their breakaway was over a specific thing. Up to that point, whenever that specific issue arose, they had all the same practices, all the same procedures, all the same ceremonies and whatnot, until there arose a disagreement between two people, and then those two people gathered followers So at that point you had two factions. I'm sorry, Protestants, you're still Catholics. No matter how far you think you've diverged from them, the Catholic organization is still your mother. You know, it's what birthed you. And Babylon is the mother or grandmother of the Catholic Church. You know, Babylon by way of Rome. Why is it so hard for people to understand that living according to biblical principles, which are not complicated, they're not difficult, there's not a lot of rules, like so many people believe it to be? In fact, if you truly desired to serve the Father and would study His Word, it would become intuitive. You wouldn't have to think about it. You wouldn't have to seek these procedures that you think you have to go through in order to serve Yahweh and to live a biblical life. It's not hard. It truly isn't. And unless you study the scriptures, and by study the scriptures, I mean the same scriptures that Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul, Stephen, and Timothy, and a bunch of others whose names I don't know, and certainly not least Yeshua or Jesus study the same scriptures that they studied. What scriptures did they study? The only scriptures that they had, Torah and the prophets. Because remember, Matthew, Mark, Luke, John, Paul, and a few others are the ones who wrote what you refer to as the New Testament. So there's no way that they could have studied the New Testament. So when you see in scriptures, when you see written in the New Testament to study the scriptures daily, that's Acts chapter 17 verses 10 and 11, by the way. For those in Berea were more noble than those in Thessalonica, in that they received the word with all readiness of mind, yet searched the scriptures daily to prove whether those things be so. They searched and studied the Torah and the prophets. And 2 Timothy chapter 2 verse 15, study to show thyself approved unto Yahweh, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. I got that a little bit out of order, but it didn't change the meaning of what was said. So get out of this lie that you've been told. When Scripture tells you to study Scripture, it's not telling you to read the New Testament. It's telling you to study Torah and the prophets. And it's only by doing that that it will become written on your inward parts, and that you can come to know it and learn it and live it. And that is showing the love of Yahweh. That is selfless love. I mean, yes, selfless love is also given to others until it hurts, you know. Selfless love is giving what you can't afford to give. That's truly, that is selfless love. But you can't love that way, that selflessly, until you love Yahweh so selflessly that you're willing to give yourself to Him completely. And it's an easy thing to say, oh, well, I am. I do give myself to Him completely. Well, I can prove to you that most of us do not give ourselves to Him selflessly, myself included. Because I stay up too late, and I sleep too long, and I don't always preach the Word. I mean, yeah, I try to follow the procedures of Torah. You know, I don't eat hog and shrimp and shellfish and catfish, and you know, I don't eat buzzard and dogs and stuff like that. You know, that's certainly not a hard one to follow. Well, I say it's not hard, given all the contaminants in what they sell in the grocery stores as food today. I'm sure some of those things are there, but anyway, I'm gonna end it here. I've rambled enough. Remember, live according to Torah. It is entirely possible to do it in the world today, whether you believe it or not. And remember, 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, study yourself. You know, you have to study it for yourself. No one else can study it for you. And studying is not sitting in a building one day a week listening to somebody telling you what it means. So study to show yourself approved. And I hope to see you all in the kingdom. Be blessed.